Arsenal have entered the race for a Liverpool midfielder, and this story is more interesting than it first looks. Welcome to Wenger Arsenal Daily, your trusted home for everything Arsenal. If you have not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go and do that right now. We bring you honest, detailed, and passionate coverage of every Arsenal story, every transfer, and every big moment at this incredible club. Thousands of Gooners already trust us as their daily Arsenal source, and we want you in this family too. Now let us sit down and properly talk through one of the more unexpected transfer stories to emerge in the last 48 hours, because the news has landed and it deserves a full and honest conversation rather than just a quick headline. Introduction. There are transfer stories that make you immediately jump out of your seat and stories that make you stop and think carefully before you react. This one falls somewhere between the two. According to the Daily Mail's Lewis Steele, one of the most well-connected football journalists covering the Premier League beat, Arsenal have emerged as a potential destination for Curtis Jones, the 25-year-old Liverpool midfielder whose future at Anfield is looking increasingly uncertain this summer. Steele described a move to the Emirates as one to watch, and Team Talk backed up that report by confirming that Arsenal club officials are big fans of the player and it could make a concrete approach. So who exactly is Curtis Jones? Why has his time at Liverpool come to this point? Why are Arsenal interested, and what would he actually bring to the squad? Let us go through every single detail of this story together, so every Gooner in this community has the full and honest picture. Chapter 1. The state of play at Liverpool. Before we talk about Arsenal's interest, we need to understand exactly what is happening at Liverpool, because the situation there is more complicated and more dramatic than most people realize. Liverpool are going through one of the most significant periods of squad transition in recent years. This summer alone, they have already lost Andy Robertson on a free transfer and Ibrahima Konate, who also departed without a fee. Mohamed Salah, the most iconic player of the modern Liverpool era, is strongly linked with a departure to Saudi Arabia or elsewhere, which would represent an enormous change to the club's identity if it happens. And there are several other players, including Alisson and Alexis Mac Allister, who have been mentioned in various reports as potentially available. In the middle of all of this upheaval sits Curtis Jones. The 25-year-old is a boyhood Liverpool player, born in the city and raised through the club's famous academy system. He has given his life to this club in many ways, coming through every level of their youth setup before finally breaking into the first team and making over 200 senior appearances for the Reds. He has been part of an incredibly successful period, winning 2 Premier League titles, a Champions League trophy, and several other major cup competitions. But here is the painful truth of Jones's situation. Despite all of those appearances and all of those trophies, he has never quite nailed down a guaranteed starting position in Liverpool's midfield. He has been what the football world calls a utility player, someone who does a brilliant job when called upon, who fills in across multiple positions, and who the manager trusts to come on and make a difference. But he has never been the name that goes straight onto the team sheet before any other player in his position. And at 25 years old, entering the best years of his career, Jones has apparently decided that enough is enough. According to La Gazzetta dello Sport, one of Italy's most trusted football newspapers, Jones has already told people close to him that his career at Liverpool is over. He considers this summer the right time to leave, to find a club that can guarantee him regular starts in central midfield, his preferred and natural position. That is a very significant statement from a player of his experience and caliber, and it has set off a chain of events that has now brought Arsenal into the picture. Here is a question worth thinking about before we go any further. When a player who has given 10 years to a football club, who has won every domestic honor available, and who has over 200 appearances for that club, says openly that it is time to move on, does that not deserve to be taken seriously as a genuine signal about his ambitions and his desire for a new challenge? Chapter 2. The Inter Milan situation and why it matters. The most active club in the race for Curtis Jones, until very recently, was Inter Milan, the reigning Serie A champions and one of the biggest clubs in Italian football. Inter have had Jones on their radar for a long time, with Fabrizio Romano, the most trusted transfer journalist in world football, confirming earlier this summer that Inter have considered Jones their #1 midfield target, and that the player himself is completely open to the move and keen to make it happen. Inter made not one, but two formal bids to Liverpool for Jones. Their first offer was reported at around £18 million. Liverpool rejected it immediately. Inter came back with a second bid of around £21 million, improved from the first, but still a long way from Liverpool's valuation. Liverpool rejected that one too, with the Times reporting that the club had been left irritated by what they considered an unrealistic approach from the Italians given the current market value of quality midfielders. Liverpool's position is firm and clear. They want £35 million for Curtis Jones. Not 20 million, not 25 million, £35 million, and they will not move from that figure regardless of the contract situation. The Athletic reported that senior figures at Liverpool would actually rather risk losing Jones for free next summer than allow him to leave this window in what they consider a cut-price deal that undervalues the player. Inter, according to reports from Football 365 and Team Talk, have warned Liverpool that they are prepared to walk away from negotiations entirely if the Reds refuse to lower their demands. Whether that is a genuine withdrawal or a negotiating tactic remains to be seen. But the message from Italy is that at £35 million with 1 year left on his contract, Inter consider Liverpool's price unrealistic for this stage of the process. And that is where Arsenal come in. Because if Inter step back, and if Liverpool are genuinely willing to sell at their asking price, then the door opens for another club to walk through. Steele's report for the Daily Mail specifically identified Arsenal as a club that has always had Jones on their radar, and that could now be one to watch if the situation becomes clearer. The timing of Arsenal's emergence in this story, right at the moment Inter are threatening to walk away, is not a coincidence. Chapter 3. Who is Curtis Jones, and what kind of player is he? Let us now properly talk about the player himself, because not every Arsenal fan will be deeply familiar with what Jones actually brings on a football pitch, and that context is important for understanding whether this would be smart business. Curtis Jones was born on the 30th of January, 2001 in Liverpool. He came through Liverpool's academy system from a very young age and has been at the club his entire life. He made his senior debut for Liverpool in January 2019 at just 17 years old and has been a consistent presence in the squad ever since, making over 200 appearances and contributing 22 goals and 25 assists across all competitions in a Liverpool shirt. Those are solid and respectable numbers for a player who has primarily operated as a squad player rather than a guaranteed starter. What makes Jones interesting as a footballer is his combination of technical quality and physical robustness. He is comfortable on the ball in tight spaces, has good vision and an awareness of where his teammates are, and he can drive forward with the ball and break defensive lines. He is also physically stronger than his slight frame might suggest, and he has shown throughout his career that he can handle the physical demands of Premier League football without any problems. His versatility is one of his most talked about qualities. He can play in central midfield in a deep or advanced role. He has also been deployed at right back for Liverpool during injury crises, showing his willingness to do whatever the team needs. For Arsenal, who value versatility in their squad players enormously, that kind of adaptability is attractive. This past season for Liverpool, Jones made 49 appearances across all competitions, scoring 3 goals and providing 3 assists. He also had to step in at right back at various points during the campaign due to injury problems affecting Jeremy Frimpong and Connor Bradley. The fact that he could step into that position without complaint and without significantly letting the team down shows his character and his professionalism. He is also an England international, having earned caps at various levels before breaking into the full senior squad. At 25 years old, he is right at the point in his career where consistent regular football at the highest level would allow him to push on and become the kind of player that his talent has always suggested he could be. The question is whether Arsenal is the right club to provide that, and that question is one that every Gooner needs to think about honestly. Chapter 4. Why Arsenal might want him and why some fans might not be sure. Now, let us be genuinely honest with each other, because this is where the story gets interesting from an Arsenal perspective and where some real debate is needed within our community. The case for Arsenal signing Curtis Jones starts with the price. At £35 million, Liverpool's asking price for a 25-year-old English Premier League experienced midfielder with Champions League experience, who can play multiple positions, is actually not outrageous in the current market. When you consider that Arsenal are reportedly pursuing players like Bruno Guimaraes for potentially £100 million, the idea of picking up Jones for £35 million as a versatile squad player who can immediately contribute looks like smart value business. Team Talk also raised an interesting point about Jones that should not be overlooked. They noted that while Jones clearly wants to be a regular starter in his preferred central midfield position, the honest reality is that he would face similar competition for starting places at Arsenal as he does at Liverpool. Arsenal have Declan Rice, Martin Zubimendi, and Mikel Merino, all capable of occupying central midfield positions. Adding Jones to that group means he would likely be a squad player at Arsenal too, not a guaranteed starter. That is an important thing to think about from both sides. On one hand, you might question why Jones would choose Arsenal if his main motivation is guaranteed starts when Arsenal cannot offer him that either. On the other hand, you might look at the situation and think that a player with his quality and his versatility is exactly the kind of depth option that a club competing in the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Champions League needs to have available. Former Aston Villa fullback Alan Hutton actually made a very strong argument that Jones would fit better at Aston Villa than at Arsenal. He said Jones would complement the Villa midfield perfectly, that his desire to carry the ball from the back and play in tight areas and break defensive lines is exactly what Villa need, and that regular football at Villa would help him develop much faster than being a squad player at Arsenal. That perspective deserves to be heard honestly. Nottingham Forest have also been mentioned as another Premier League club considering Jones, particularly after they sold Elliot Anderson to Manchester City and now need midfield reinforcement. Forest could offer Jones something that Arsenal perhaps cannot, which is a genuine central role and a guarantee of regular starts. So here is the honest picture. Arsenal are interested. The price point is reasonable. Jones has real quality and genuine experience. But whether he would see Arsenal as the right move for his development and ambitions at this stage of his career is a question that only he can answer. Chapter 5. What Jones would bring to the Arsenal squad. Let us think positively for a moment and paint the picture of what Curtis Jones at Arsenal would actually look like, because there is a genuine and compelling case to be made here if you approach it with the right mindset. Arsenal's title-winning season showed that squad depth is absolutely vital across a long and demanding campaign. They play 50 to 60 matches in a full season covering the Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, and League Cup. Across that many games, injuries are inevitable, suspensions happen, and having quality options to rotate and rest key players without a drop in performance level is what separates the clubs that win things consistently from the clubs that push hard for a while and then fall away. Curtis Jones would fit into that squad picture as a genuinely useful and versatile option. He can play as a number 8 in a midfield 3, covering ground, picking up second balls, driving forward, and arriving late to support attacks. He can be used in a more advanced central role if Arteta wants to deploy him differently. And as his Liverpool career proved, he can even fill in at right back in an emergency without making the team significantly weaker. His Champions League experience is valuable. Jones has played in multiple Champions League campaigns with Liverpool and knows what it takes to compete on European nights against the very best opposition. At 25 years old, that experience combined with his Premier League knowledge means he would not need time to adapt to the intensity or the standard. He would be immediately ready to contribute. There is also the psychological angle. Jones is someone who has been told, essentially by the way Liverpool have used him, that he is not quite at the level needed to be a guaranteed starter at the very top. Coming to Arsenal, where he would be competing for a place in a strong squad, could either crush a lesser character or bring out something more determined and more driven in him. Everything we know about Jones as a person suggests it would be the latter. Chapter 6. The Liverpool angle and why it makes this interesting. Let us acknowledge something that every Arsenal fan will immediately notice about this story. Signing a player from Liverpool is always a sensitive and exciting thing for this community. Liverpool are one of Arsenal's biggest rivals for the Premier League title, and the idea of taking a player from Anfield and bringing him to the Emirates has an extra layer of satisfaction to it beyond the pure football logic. But it is important to be honest about this rather than letting the rivalry cloud the judgment. The question should not be whether Jones comes from Liverpool and therefore we want him. The question should always be whether he is the right player for Arsenal's specific needs at this moment in time. And the honest answer is that he probably is a useful player for Arsenal if the price is right and if he comes in with the right mindset. He is not a world beater. He is not a player who is going to transform games single-handedly or become one of the first names on the team sheet. But he is a reliable, experienced, versatile Premier League-ready midfielder who can provide quality cover and competition across the midfield positions. For £35 million in the current market, that is fair value. The interesting dynamic is also that Liverpool would rather sell to Inter Milan than to Arsenal, which is completely understandable given that Arsenal are a direct domestic rival. If Liverpool do agree a deal with Inter at some point, Arsenal's route to signing Jones disappears. But if Inter genuinely walk away from negotiations as they have threatened, Liverpool may find that their options become more limited, and the conversation about whether to accept £35 million from Arsenal becomes a more pressing one. Chapter 7. What the community should make of all this. To everyone here in the Wenger Arsenal Daily community, this is one of those transfer stories where your first reaction might be surprise or even uncertainty, and that is completely understandable. Curtis Jones is not the kind of high-profile name that immediately gets Gunners off their seats in the way a Bruno Guimaraes or a Julian Alvarez might. But part of what makes a good football club great is not just the superstar signings at the top end of the market. It is the quality of the depth players, the squad members who come in, contribute on the big nights, and make sure the starting 11 never drops its level because the alternatives behind them are not good enough. Over the course of a 60-match season, those depth players win leagues and cup competitions. And at £35 million, Jones would be a very reasonable investment in that kind of depth quality. The key thing to watch in the coming days and weeks is whether Inter Milan genuinely walk away from negotiations and whether Liverpool then become more open to domestic interest. If Liverpool are holding out for £35 million and no one is meeting that fee, they may find that the conversation with Arsenal suddenly becomes more attractive than losing him for nothing next summer. Arsenal are smart operators in the transfer market. If they are in this race, they have a reason to be. Trust the process and watch how this develops. Conclusion. Let's bring it all together one final time. Arsenal have entered the race to sign Curtis Jones from Liverpool, with the Daily Mail's Lewis Steele describing a move to the Emirates as one to watch and Team Talk confirming that Arsenal officials are big fans of the player. Jones, 25, has made over 200 appearances for Liverpool, winning 2 Premier League titles, a Champions League trophy, and several other major honors, but has grown frustrated with his inability to secure a guaranteed starting spot in central midfield. He is said to consider his Liverpool career over and is keen on a fresh challenge. Inter Milan have had 2 bids rejected, with Liverpool holding firm at their £35 million asking price, and Inter threatening to walk away. Arsenal, Tottenham, Aston Villa, and Nottingham Forest have all been mentioned as potential suitors if the Italian door closes. Here is the question we want every Gunner in the community to answer honestly in the comments below. Would you welcome Curtis Jones to Arsenal this summer as a smart squad addition at a reasonable price? Or do you think Arsenal should be spending their transfer budget on bigger and more impactful names in different areas of the pitch? And do you think Jones would relish the challenge of competing for his place at Arsenal, or would he be better served by going somewhere he can start regularly straight away? We want to hear every honest opinion from this community. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this blog with every Arsenal fan you know. And if you have not already done so, please subscribe to the Wenger Arsenal Daily YouTube channel. We are your most trusted daily source for everything Arsenal, covering every transfer story, every match, and every big moment as this incredible club keeps rising to the very top. Curtis Jones wants out of Liverpool. Arsenal are watching, and this story is only going to get more interesting in the days ahead. Up the Arsenal, always.